Hello, how are you doing today? Today I'm going to be making some bread. By the way, I'm Stuart. Welcome to my kitchen. And today it's bread making, and it's a real simple one. I wanted to just get down to, by the way, this is the Cameo. This is my new puppy down here. This is Ivy. Yeah, she's too silly. She loves to come in the kitchen. So anyway, we're going to be making a wonderful, very simple bread. It's going to be a white bread. It's going to be what's called a high hydration bread. That's where we use the same amount of water as we do flour by weight. So 550 grams of flour, 550 grams of water, a little salt, a little yeast, boom, you got bread. And that's all we're going to do. So I've already pulled out a couple of bowls here, and I have some of my flour here, measuring cups that I've already pulled out. Let me get the yeast and yeast here, water. So I decided to make a little bit of a change in the way I do videos. If you've not noticed already, I decided to start doing these the same way I would just cook anything else. And so I'm simply doing this for you the same way I do my stuff for me. Imagine that, huh? Yeah, I think I need a bowl. There we go. Trusty little bowl. Okay, if you want to come a little closer, you see what we're using: flour, salt, yeast, and water. That's it. And as to how much, you're about to see that right now. I already told you the amounts of a couple of items, but the rest is pretty simple. So come over, I'll show you how I do this, and you'll find out making bread is way easier than you might have first considered it to be. All right, that's a little better. I think you can see better that way. So this is as simple as, let's get the scale out and get a bowl on it. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to measure out 550 grams of flour, and I'm going to measure out 550 grams of water. Now, if you're wondering, can you use other kinds of flour? You sure can. Today I am using just some regular white flour that's a high gluten flour. It's 14.5%. You can use regular all-purpose flour if you wish to do so, but frankly, it's not like you have to. Okay, you can use a high gluten flour, you can use all-purpose flour. Cake flour really won't work for this. You need at least like around 8% gluten to make good bread. Okay, 175 grams. I'm going to measure out 550. So there's 446, we're getting close. 500, 525. 546, 547, 8, 9, 550. Okay, 550 grams of flour. And I'm going to do the same exact thing with the water here. So I want to click tar. There we go. That way it just zeroes it for the weight of the cup. If you're not used to measuring ingredients by weight, I really recommend you give it a try. It makes making things like this a lot easier. See there, I'm running out of room in my measuring cup. So, you know, when this happens to you from time to time, it's not a big deal, okay? There's no sense in worrying about that. We'll just zero it again. There we go. Now, if you notice I went over a little bit, 592. You know, the neat thing about using a scale, there we go, 551. That's pretty much dead on, isn't it? 1 gram over, we're not going to worry about. All right, so That is all there is to your measurements for those two items. Now, for the yeast and the salt, that's a teaspoon of salt, and for the yeast, that's going to be 2 1/4 teaspoons. If you're doing it by weight, if I remember right, it's 7 grams on the salt and 13 or 14 grams on the yeast. So that's what you have there. Simple enough. I'm not going to bother with the weighing on the smaller measurements. I'm just going to use my spoon and measure them right into what I'm doing. Now, first thing I do, and this is how I like to do my doughs. It's really simple. There we go. Just like I cook every day. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Now, when you're doing something that has yeast in it, yeast and salt do not get along with each other, okay? Salt will kill yeast. Metal isn't too fun for yeast either. It just slows down its rising properties, which is why we always rise in a glass, ceramic, or a plastic bowl, not a metal bowl. Okay, so I have that mixed in. If you notice, I don't put the salt directly against the yeast because, as I say, they don't like each other. There we go. Here's our salt. 1 teaspoon of salt. I'll mix that in. There we go. My flour is ready to go. Now I'm going to mix this in the bowl that I'm going to rise it in. This glass bowl. And why did I use this on the scale? The glass bowl is really heavy and the scale has a weight limit, okay? It's 11 pounds. Well, I'm not going to push my luck, okay? I don't want to put too much weight on my scale all at once, so I use a lighter bowl. Yeehaw. So this is as simple as get your water in here and stir the two things together with a spatula. When you're finished, you're going to have what is referred to as a high hydration dough. Now, high hydration dough is just a dough that's really wet. Okay, it's quite sticky. And when it comes to handling it, there's a special way to handle a dough like this. You don't flour your hands, you wet your hands, okay? And when you see me do the first kneading after the first rise, you'll see exactly how it works, and it's really easy. So right there, it is mixed. I'm going to do no more than that. The rest from here happens through autolyzation and through the rising of the dough itself. Autolyzing is where you're forming your gluten, the gluten strands. And that happens with or without the yeast being in there. Okay, so that is just something that happens over time. And you can't replace what takes time to do. Now you can knead a dough in a mixer, but that only gets you so far. This is really the best way. All right, so as you can see, there's just not a whole lot to making that. I need to cover it. I can use a film covering, but I like to just use another bowl. If I use 2 glass bowls like this, I can see everything really easy. So I know what's going on at any moment. So the rest of this, there's not much cleanup, is there? As you can see, making dough, very simple ingredients, very inexpensive, and very easy. Now, I'll show you in just a little bit. It'll be about 30 or 40 minutes for me, but it'll be a few seconds for you, and then we'll take a look at this after it has risen up in here, and I'll show you how to knead it without getting all messy, okay? Not hard. All right, we take a look here. This has doubled in bulk easily. and it's gotten kind of bouncy and jiggly and weird. And there's lots of bubbles around the bottom. So it's doing what it's supposed to do. It's rising. Now I need to knead it, but this stuff is like way sticky, as you can see there. And so what I want to do is fix it so it's not all over my hands when I'm done. Now there'll be little bits on my hands, but only for the most part after the first kneading. After that, the second and third kneadings are really easy. In fact, doing all of the kneadings are easy, including this first one. It's just a little more sticky. So let me show you what you do. You got dry hands, right? I'm going to wet my hands. And come on in a little closer. Now I wet my hands with cold water, and I'm just going to pull back the dough from the front, or I should say the back side here. And then also from the opposite side here. And then I'm going to reach in on both sides and see how much is on my hand. I'm going to pull down and lift. Look how stretchy that thing is. I'm going to turn it, reach underneath and lift. Whoop. Turn it. Don't worry if it breaks. It's the first one. Looky there, it's starting to bind. That's that gluten doing what it's supposed to do. Turn it another quarter turn. Lift. Looky there. Now it's starting to act like dough, huh? Okay. But it is a little bit sticky. Now, don't worry about what little sticks to you. It's not going to matter. This, what little is left, will easily and quickly wash off. This will rise and double again, and it'll start rising a little faster the second and third time. I'm going to knead this 4 times before I bake it. The 4th time I rise it will be on a sheet pan, and it'll be really cool. So we'll look at that in just a little bit. And by the way, this rinses off super quick and easy, like there. So I have just finished rinsing. It only took 2 seconds. Cold water rinse will take that right off, and it does so very quickly and easy. Cover it. There we go. We'll wait for it to rise again. We'll do the same thing again. Have you ever seen kneading that was that easy? Never. Never, ever. Now my problem is I have arthritis, and that helps. You know, I have a problem with really bad arthritis. It hurts the hands really super bad to do a lot of stuff. And so kneading dough is not something I look forward to. No. I want it to be easy enough that I'm not having to hurt my hands. And this is the perfect dough for that. It's easier, quicker, and it produces a bread that is just phenomenal. Well, here we are on the second rise. And look at that. Even more jiggly than before. That's really cool. When you're working with a high hydration dough, they're just kind of interesting. Okay, so I got to knead this thing again. It's the exact same thing that I did last time, really. No hard work to do here. I need to wet my hands. Soak them with cold water and pull this back. Remember how we did that? Rotated 180 degrees. Look at that, it's already stuck to the top edge. Pull it back and turn it this way. So I'm not going to reach down in the middle. I'm going to pull it back this way as far as I can and reach down. What I do is I just curve my hands under, grab it, and lift up. So like this. Isn't that wild? Boom. Turn it and do it again. That's a quarter of a turn. So I lift it. Looky there. There it's up. Turn it upside down. Flop it over on itself. Do that again. And the last time. Look how bouncy and stretchy it's getting now. That means that gluten is developing real well. And if you'll notice, there's not much sticking to my hands. It's mostly just the sticky gluten from the dough that's sticking to me, and it's really funky stuff, let me tell you. So enjoy this. There we go. I'm just going to let it rise again, and when it hits the top of the bowl, we'll do the same procedure again. All right, this is the last time I'm going to knead it in the bowl without putting it on a sheet. So the next step after this is going to be putting it on some sheet pans, but I'll have to knead it and stretch the dough the right way, and I'll show you what I do there. And I'll get out a breadboard, a pastry knife, and some sheet pans and some spray to keep it from sticking. Yay! Okay, so Again. There we go. I had to wet my hands. See how it's much easier to work with now? I can just be a lot more forceful with it. There we go. Yeah, a big old bubble on top. Just popped it. There we are. Yeah. There we have it. So, at this point, I'm going to let it rise last time, and I'm going to get everything out and ready to make the loaves, okay? So, just that simple. Now, one thing I'll say is when you're using one of those big dough boards like the one I like to use, my big plastic one, put down a cloth. It keeps them from sliding around. These guys right here. Now, something I'll mention about this. These have a tendency to warp. They'll either curve up or they'll curve back. If they're doing that, then it's usually when you're washing it that you'll notice the biggest change. The side that's curved out was the one that got more water that was hot on it. If you'll wet the concave side with some hot water, it'll flatten that thing right out for you. Okay, so they do that. They're kind of weird. Hey, pastry knife to help cut it in half. And there we go. I like to use these as a scoop for my flour. Just a lot easier to work with it. All right, so I also need a fairly good size stainless steel bowl. Now what I want to use this for is to put over the dough when I'm baking it. So after I'm finished rising it, I'll put this on top of the dough, stick it in the oven, and it'll actually steam the dough. It'll rise better, and it cooks a little longer that way. You just get a much better bread this way. Wait till you try it. Okay, so that's what that's for. But one thing I wanted to mention about this, put a little butter, or you can use some spray or lard or shortening or whatever you want to put in here. Just put a little bit on that inner surface so that if the dough rises up and into it while it's in the oven, it won't stick to the bowl. It will do that sometimes if you don't have it greased. All right. And I know it sounds a little odd. Some people say, why would you use grease for bread? Well, frankly, folks, it releases real well. You can use something else. You could use like cornmeal, but I just don't like that on the bottom of my bread. So I just lubricate the pan with a little spray, let it rise on that, and everything is good. Okay, now I've got everything ready for us to get started. But before I get on to the dough, I want to start here. I have, yay, a little piece of butter there. I'm just going to put some of that butter on the inside of this bowl. And it doesn't take a lot. It just takes a very thin layer of some kind of grease to be there. Okay, there we are. I want to rub it so it'll smooth it out. One of the reasons I'm doing this on its side like this is because as I'm looking at it, I can see spots where the grease aren't where the grease aren't, listen to me, where I do not have grease. And that way I can see, you know, the spots that have it and that don't because of the way the light reflects off of the metal. Ibbity, ibbity, ibbity. If I learn how to speak, we'll have it made. Okay, that's ready to go. Yeehaw. Just going to put it over there out of the way for a little while. This board, I need some flour on it. And there's my dough. So right now I'm just kind of getting some stuff out of my way, cleaning my area. I need to prep my pans. I like to do certain things before I get into shaping, okay? All right, here we go. And I try to just grease enough of the pan that I know the dough is going to be on, and so I don't have to worry about it. Now those are out of my way. we're ready for the dough. So again, do I wet my hands? Not this time. Not this time. This time, we're just going to do the flour method. And that's because we're going to be working with it, and I'm going to need to transfer it and that kind of good stuff. So I need plenty of flour. When I say plenty, it's because this stuff is like really super sticky, as you've seen. Look at me getting that flour all over my hands. What will I do next? Now, after I get the dough up here, I'm going to then cut it in half with the pastry knife right here, and then we're going to be putting part of it up there. I'll take the other part and I'll work it. Now, so you'll know, the motion that I'm going to use to shape the dough, to stretch the dough tight across the top surface, is this motion. I take my hands and pull them together like this. What that does is it rotates the dough. It'll turn the dough and pull the top down. As I'm pulling my hands together, it stretches the dough inward, and as I'm pulling across this way, it rotates the dough, so I stretch it inward evenly across that top. That's how that works. Okay, simple enough, right? Sure. Here we go. There's our dough. Get off of there. Isn't that fun looking? And look, oh, by the way, here's the bowl. It's out clean. So what do we have? We have a gelatinous mass, right? This stuff is really fun to work with once you get used to it. And it's not hard. Just don't make it more than it is, okay? Now, if you notice, I'm using a lot of flour. Well, we got a lot of sticky going on, all right? So be liberal with your flour, because you're going to be dealing with a lot of sticky. And what happens is the flour gets pulled under and kind of drops off of it, so you don't have to worry too much about how much is going to get in it or anything. All right, so here we go. I'm going to just carve him in half. And again, they don't like to. There's a lot of sticky there, so I'm going to flour it. See, just touching it. A little squeaking outdoors is the new puppy. Yeah, it's kind of cool, but there's sunshine. She's more lonely than anything because the other dog won't play with her right now. Okay, so as you see, I'm using that pull it together motion, and what it's doing is it's pulling the sides down and rotating it. Now, it's getting a little bit sticky, so more flour on top, and you can see how it just sticks to you a little bit. It's not a big problem. Get a pan here so it's ready to go. Look at that bubble forming right there on top. Isn't that wild? Okay, now sometimes it'll stick a bit too much. If that happens, just rub that extra dough off of your hands. Get a little more flour on your hands. Don't worry about it. A little more flour on the dough. And I think my last turning on this is going to be enough. It's already holding shape pretty well, see? I've pulled it tight across the top. I'm just going to do that a little bit more. And there we go. It's pretty darn firm. I'm going to transfer that over to my greased tray here. Kind of get it in position a little bit. And in a little bit, we're going to cover both of them with a pastry cloth and just let them do their thing and rise. Now, I like to get my pans side by side. I'm going to use a pastry cloth over it that's older than I am. This pastry cloth is responsible for more loaves than I can even imagine. So there we go. We'll let it do its thing. These are going to double in size, and at that point, 400-degree oven, and it's going to be a total of a 40-minute cook. However, remember, we are using a bowl to cook it under. So it's 25 minutes at 400 with the bowl, and then following that, we're going to have another 15 minutes with the bowl off of it. And that allows it to build steam, and the dough will grow beautifully. Okay, it is time for this to hit the oven. It's got a little bit on the, oh my God, it's big side. There we go. Put my little bowl over the top of it, and it hits the oven. 400 degrees. We leave it with the bowl for 25 minutes. And then we'll take that bowl off and give it about another 15 minutes. Alrighty. We have had 25 minutes of cook time. It's time to remove that bowl. There we go. Now if you'll notice, it's very light on top, even though it's been in there a while. It really puffed up well. Okay, I'm just gonna let it finish. It'll crisp off, finish cooking, and it'll be delicious. Now, watch out for that bowl, mighty hot. All right, my timer just went off. My first loaf is ready. Look at that, folks. Does that look like the way you want your bread to look? Isn't that gorgeous? So, got to get that off the pan in a moment. But until then, I'm going to cook up the other one. Can't wait. There we go. One really, really fine looking loaf of bread. I'll put it there to cool on that rack. And there it is, folks. That's not a hard thing to do. Give this recipe a try. You're going to love it. Well, it looks like these have cooled enough to touch. Now, once they've cooled down a little bit, you'll notice that crust gets a little bit soft and a little bit pliable. And then after that, if you let it sit out, well, folks, that crust is going to harden up on you. And it'll get nice and crispy. So you kind of take your pick as to which way you like it. I'm trying to cut that gently, if I can. The bottom crust is quite crusty. Woo, look at that big old pocket on top. But look at all the rest of this down here. That beautiful, very uneven structure. Delicious bread, I guarantee you. That is absolutely what I'm talking about right there. Hey, when you try this, you're going to love it. It's good stuff. Well, now, it is out of the oven. It's cool, sliced. Nothing like a little butter on fresh bread, right? We're talking stretchy, wonderful dough. Not so tender. That flavor. No, thing of it is, 4 ingredients, folks. Flour, water, yeast, and salt equals delicious if you can be a little bit patient. Enjoy your bread. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't done so. Don't forget to click the bell so you'll get reminded when I put up a new video. Put a comment down below and click that thumbs up, folks. That really helps me out a lot. And enjoy your bread. Bye-bye.